was no
Hello
teaspoons left in my house, so I have a giant spoon in my giant teacup.
If it were a slightly larger teacup, then you would have a small spoon in your giant
That's
teacup.
true. That's true, and then it would be the appropriate size.
Or that's
Just
a
have
very
to-
small mug and a
Oh, yes.
very normal small spoon.
Yeah, my head is actually tiny. I mean,
Exactly.
I sit really close to the camera.
Perspective.
I'm only about 10 inches tall.
I'm not willing to entertain that because I know you in real
That's
life.
like half an Alexandria.
Hey, I read the captions and that's what told me.
So how y'all doing, friendos? Life's good?
Yeah.
Fairly good.
I went to a swing dance class last night, which was awesome fun, but I am very sore.
Oh gosh,
I want
yes. Swing
that.
dance is delightful and exhausting.
Yeah.
I want that. I can't walk more than 5 kilometers from my house, so
Yeah, I was surprised to learn you were going outside at all at this point.
I mean I went to the pharmacy. It's not like I went far. Oh, it's just out like it's 20 meters down the road. It's the furthest I've been in months. It really is. That's the furthest I've been in months.
Even further than a trip to the chemist, yeah.
I can go to the chemist. Otherwise, it's my backyard.
Yes, but the good news is you have a backyard.
Oh yeah, no. Like when we moved, that was very specifically like we were like, we need a yard.
Yeah.
You also have quite a large dog, so.
Yes. I need a yard.
The dog
Also,
doesn't
okay,
care.
point.
She needs the yard.
Yes, Puck does not care. Just me.
Yeah, I know that feeling. All right. So for the folks who are terribly skilled in observation, you'll notice that Danny's not here. So she has personal stuffs that are going on. So we are missing hers. Hey, Fragilities, thank you very much for the follow.
Hey.
And so, yeah, I guess the part of Kazura will be played by an alternation of a snoring upside down bird in a corner and a committee.
A committee. Ooh,
Yes, as in if we
am I on the
actually
committee?
if the character needs to do something involving dice rolling, we'll all figure it out collectively what the appropriate thing to do would be.
I wish to be on the committee. How do I apply?
Well, that is the point.
All you need to do is be shocked by everything we do. What the hell?
But only the normal things. Only the normal things.
Yes, well, and that was something what I was watching this afternoon. Chrissy remarked on was that it was very obvious that it was this delightful alien looking at normal, going, "What the hell is that?" And the things that are actually alien don't phase her at all.
Imagine you get to a point of weird where you just like, I've hit my threshold. Beyond that, it doesn't matter. We're at that point where I can't. But then the other one is like below that, you're still getting that. Wait, hang on. That was where I thought I'd be comfortable. No, stop.
So yeah, so we miss Danny. We hope she's back to hang out with us soon.
Please.
I suppose we're supposed to do introductions and things now. All right.
Sam,
Hi.
introduce yourself.
I'm
Now.
Sam. Hi.
Thank you.
Hello, Sam.
Where do we find you? Do we need to find you somewhere?
Right there. He's
we
down.
found
he's
Sam.
just underneath. And Spidey's over there.
Hiding very poorly. I just want you to know that.
You can't see
How
you
not to
can't
hide.
see what's behind me. I can be anywhere. I'm not. I'm still here. At Twitter, I guess would be the actual answer. It's on the screen, but it's at _real Sammy P. I am a voice actor and performer. I'm based in Brisbane, and yeah, I don't have anything upcoming at the moment. So, I got nothing to spruik.
Okay.
Okay. Jamie.
From whence does that word come?
Spruik.
Hmm?
Oh.
Yes.
Is that an Australianism? Or?
It might be Australianism. I think it's from like.
The only people I've ever heard.
Jamie, tell us about you.
Yes, not a distraction. I'm Jamie.
Almost got them.
Yep. I'm Jamie Collette. You can find me on Twitter at Muffin Manifesto, or on my website, jamie-collette.com. I'm a professional voice actor and director, and I do things with my voice mostly. Though I also this week recorded a video for the first time in a long time, where I'm now like one of the international faces of the Australian census, so that was fun.
That's fun.
Oh, very cool.
Not for public advertising, but for
but for internal use. Yeah.
advertising between like statistics departments all across the world.
Oh my goodness, coming to a statistics department near you.
Mm-hmm.
The word spruik is in fact Australian. It is informal Australian, and it means to speak in public, especially to advertise a show.
It's kind of like a carnival barker.
Yeah. I don't know what that is, and I don't want to know. Michelle, tell us.
Well,
tell us about you.
Yes, tell us about me. Me is Michel Vaillancourt. I'm a author, superior random game designer, political wonk, and author. And you can find me doing most of those things on Twitter, MichelleV69. You can also find me yakking about being a storyteller / games master on my most of the Sundays morning Twitch stream at 902 PE Gaming. I talk about map making, running this game, how I make the decisions, craft the plot lines, all the other good stuff, as well as answer questions from folks who are just curious about GMing. So drop in, say hi.
Very nice. And I am Chantel, the person that does all of the things, doesn't believe in burnout, and you can find anything that I do at wordswithcolor.com, or you can find anything I do in my Twitter bio, because there's a link tree there. That saves me from doing anything else. And I'm going to go through the intro now, because I refuse.
I mean, I just want to say one thing. As a psychologist, I hope you don't not believe in burnout. You just don't believe in that you can burn out.
I don't believe in burnout for me, which is very specific. I do also believe in changing the color of my lights repeatedly until I figure out what I feel like having the lights look like today. But
random lighting tech test now.
It's just buttons and it's there. So I can just repeatedly press them until something
roll that intro
happens. Let's roll the intro. We have returned. No, we haven't. Yes, we have.
Yes, I feel like.
Sorry. It was whether or not I had changed my Stream Deck, and I had. So it's good. We did it.
Yes, buttons were pressed, stuffs were done.
Press buttons in the right order.
All right.
Success for all.
I wouldn't go that far.
Especially me.
First
all right then. Hey KJ, welcome. So on last we left Unlawful Disorder. It turns out tequila does not cure all ills. It does cure you of having a coherent burden to talk to, however. So the part of Danny will be the part of Casual will be played by an absent Danny, which pretty much simulates the I'm trying to come up with a polite way of saying
Drunk bird.
drunk to the point of incoherently babbling in her own language and singing songs you don't recognize. I'm not sure I can. So she's just going to be off in a corner for the immediate moment, looking a lot like a drunk full 60.
I feel like that's me, but without the drinking.
I just choose, boxes, fits, carry on. So it was the morning of the 22nd. You folks had an exciting day of exploring Cliff Spider and had been up partying for a good chunk of the evening, being threatened with cosmic doom for part of the evening, and then finally got around to sleeping, and then got up in the morning, apparently having decided that there hadn't been nearly enough alcohol last night, and so resumed. Or at least that was the decision of half the group.
Yes.
The other two.
Do I
So
not remember that
folks are
at
all sitting. You folks are all still at the staggering clock. There's a fair platter of an assortment of breakfast food in the middle of the table. Strike hardy, as it were. You've got a slab of meat. You've got a slab of crust bread to drop it onto, and some gravy and all the other good stuff. And so you've got a hearty breakfast to nosh on. Last seen, Alexandre was over at the bar, having opted for liquid chemical annihilation. So that, as far as I know, leaves Mysol and Switch over at the table.
That sounds right.
Switch had left.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
that's true. Yeah, I went for a
Yes,
walk.
that's right.
He went to talk to the troll
Yes.
ambassador.
Yeah, I
Yes,
spent most
that's
of the
right.
day with the troll ambassador, if I recall.
Yes.
correctly.
So okay. So yeah, that's right. I remember actually that from watching the playthrough today. So you were sort of middle of the afternoon before Switch is available. So I guess the question is what are you folks doing? What is Alexandre and Mysol doing for? I have 2 time slots essentially here. There's late morning, lunch, 3 time slots, and then early afternoon before we catch up to Spider in late afternoon.
I mean, Alexandre's drinking and then presumably sleeping.
Fair enough.
There's only so much you can stay conscious while drinking. And
I
then,
was just
and
going
then
to
it's
say,
done.
yeah. Yes, and your wealth level is sufficient that bluntly that the only thing stopping you from drinking is the floor.
That's fine. I mean, before she wouldn't pass out on the floor. She'd crawl to bed. Possibly literally. Unsure.
An important distinction.
Which leaves Mysol, I suppose. And then there was one. Are we just gonna? Do you just want to time skip to late afternoon if there's nothing really relevant?
I mean, I'm kind of after last week. I also had a look at how at magic items work, and I'm kind of tempted to get one, but it comes across that same problem of it takes weeks, and it's just sort of like. But it's also he doesn't really have anything else to do. The person he's waiting to meet isn't going to be here for at least 2 or 3 days, and everyone else is either drunk or not here. So he
drunk, not here, singing, not here, or a combination of drunk, singing, and not here.
Yeah, I think he might do that.
Okay.
It's I don't know if how much you want. Like he basically just goes to the same place.
Yeah,
but,
fair enough.
But
So
later,
then, yes.
I guess.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, the catch is it's early morning, so essentially then the only real change would be to the scene is perhaps after about 45 minutes or an hour or so of Switch chatting with the with the troll, the ambassador slash merchant. That the only thing that would change about that scene would be Mysel would be hanging around and sort of involved and seeing the same sorts of things and having the same general style of conversation, and also planning out what that piece of magic might look like. I think the thing that probably will vaguely cross Mysel's mind is it doesn't seem to have registered on the troll that you are, quote, a child. He seems to have mistaken you for a halfling at the point you've wandered over asking for a magic item.
That's sometimes like best case scenario, where people are just like the cognitive dissonance of like that's a halfling.
Yeah,
that's not a human child. That's
yeah.
That makes more sense.
It's
okay,
a very skinny halfling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why wore the big coat? It's just like it just helps.
Yep. So Spider and Mysel then will spend the afternoon, up until late afternoon, hanging out with in the market, getting probably having food over at the kebab shop, and chatting with and chatting some more with the merchant. And
there will be a point because the thing I'm thinking about. And like he's probably using like Phantasm to like show it and feel like this is this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But it mine does like tick over into like the level 6 one, so it's going to take like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's probably a conversation about like around that time, would it be okay for him to like contact him telepathically to arrange delivery?
It's going to wind up taking 3 tries to get the idea of telepathic across. And then probably, basically at some point he will just look at you and very patiently say, "Show me." So of course you'll try, and what you're going to discover is that you have a disad -1 on attempting telepathic communication with trolls.
Fun.
They're just inherently resistant to. They essentially, as a collective group, they have resistance to the spying bane. And to and they are bad at telepathy, I guess is the best way of putting it. They're just inherently neurologically so different from everything else.
Yeah, cool.
So that you learn a thing about them. It takes a few tries to tune the radio, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Which is not for the intended purpose. It's sort of like, all right, this. I might have to dial a couple times.
Yeah, but it suddenly occurs to you, but that also explains why he just couldn't understand what you were trying to explain about talking mind to mind. His culture just doesn't do it.
Yeah,
it's just because it's just inherently amongst them so difficult to do that it's just not how they communicate.
To be fair, it's a pretty conceptually difficult thing to understand.
Yeah, but yes, but they're just, like I say, it's just a quirk of the trolls as a whole.
There'd be a degree of like, I mean, Mysel loves learning about new people and cultures and places. Yeah. So like quirks like that, just be like, oh, this is great. This is actually fantastic.
So the trolls are, I think the proper term is they're myconoid. They're essentially a sentient fungal culture.
Very
right.
Cool.
Neat.
And so very much in the same way that octopi have a distributed nervous system, they don't have a central brain. That's sort of how the trolls work.
So cool.
Right.
And so it makes a few things far more complicated than it needs to be, particularly for any kind of mental power. Yeah. In both directions, right? It's both a bane and a boon for them.
It's kind of like you're not having difficulty tuning to the right frequency, you're jerry-rigging the equipment to link with something it's not designed to.
Yes. It's in its own way. It's the exact same bizarre that you ran into dealing with the idea of the Ebon Elves and the Royal Grey paintings, right? Until you put the UV goggles on, and then go, oh wow, that's what I've been missing. It makes no sense why anyone would decorate their house in that much gray.
Cool.
So yes, but it also, I think my soul. Does anyone here have a learning stat less than 3?
Mine might be 2. Let me double check.
Alexandra's is 1.
Yeah,
You are
2.
inaudible, Chantel.
Alexandra's is 1.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
And Spiders is 2.
Okay, 2. Okay. What's
My soul's
My
is
soul's-
5.
5? Okay.
That
I think
makes
for
sense.
my soul, it explains a lot of the mythology you've heard about trolls. Difficult to kill. The only thing that gets rid of them is fire. Just nothing seems to slow. Well, yes. If suddenly lopping the head off doesn't slow it down. Blah blah blah. Right.
Number of pennies just over the course of the conversation, like tink, tink.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, I love it.
And their musculature has more in common with a hydraulic system than it does normal muscle, because of the way their internals work, which also gives them a ridiculous amount of strength because of the length of their arms. So just a completely not a human at all race in terms of physiology. Not mammalian in any sense, not reptilian in any sense. I mean, just completely different.
Yeah.
I love our little mushroom boys. Big
Mhm.
mushroom boys.
Yeah, in casual, in sort of general conversation, he's about average for his race in terms of height. Yeah, in build, they're all, he's not particularly tall, he's not particularly broad shoulders, he's not particularly handsome. Well, according to his wife anyway. And he makes it funny.
Now I'm imagining him as Billy Crystal from the Princess Bride.
Miracle Max, yeah.
Miracle Max, that's it.
Miracle Max, the troll
Except
ambassador.
7.5 feet tall.
So yeah. But yes, so that'll be the afternoon. You find, if, like I say, a few things, you have enough time to chat and make yourself understood and whatever. In terms of getting the magic items made, yep, they can do that. Essentially, it's sort of what they do. In the same way that some places are known for making good cigars or good wine or whatever, they're just in a position because of something that because of some geology they're sitting on, that they're in a position to be able to skillfully make magic items. And it's just, so they've just discovered that, because with the human town here, it is a very good way of keeping themselves in the good graces of everybody, because no one wants their supply of goodies cut off. Right?
Turns out people don't want to set you on fire when you're useful.
Yes.
What?
I did publish a map of the local area of the southeast area of the Skyandal Plains. And so it has all of the local tribe areas marked on it. He is from the Yellowbones, which is almost due south of Cliffspotter.
Okay,
All right.
nice.
Mhm.
It's a very pretty map, so I like it a lot.
I like that they have just like this thin, like their territory just like tapers in. And they've got this thin pathway leading directly up
Yeah.
to a road.
Yeah, literally the road was put in because so in conversation you will be able to find, you have plenty of time, no roll is required. He will again, as the sort of as an ambassador, they have their own little pride, but they also have their sense of humor. You discover it's a little bit on the dark side, but so the clay spirit and the gifted whisper are goblinkin, and so you'll notice the border gets really indistinct at that headwater of that little river. They keep insisting they own that, and the trolls just keep ignoring them and keep using it as the through road to get to the road the humans built. So if you look at the map, there's a little outpost just before the rise in the highlands there for the plains. That is sort of usually as far as most trolls will go. Drop off something, pick something up. He's about one of the only ones. Him and possibly two others are about the only ones who will make the long walk to get all the way into Cliff Spider. Most other trade for both the Illavones and the Blue Skull are just that little outpost. So they just get up that far, and the humans do the rest of it from there, staying within their own territory. Right?
I feel like this map is like, I mean, this is a much nicer version of what Spider would be sketching, but like in his conversations with what was this troll's name again? I remember you telling me, but
Radel Zakar.
Yep.
Sorry.
There you go.
Yep.
With Radel. Yeah, so Spider would be like sort of as they're explaining some of the the dynamics out on the plains. Like this is the crude map that Spider is sketching, trying to like just the circles or the colored bits, but rather than the details.
But yeah, just it's but this is going to be this is the sort of the reason I have this is because this is the sort of thing that your arrangements between Bruxia and the twins will basically give you for free. You can find whatever you sort of on this map you can find out about.
Interesting.
So we talked a little bit on Discord about the tribe that the Dashamali told us about.
Right.
Are they one of these ones here, or?
Well, actually, and so that's so this is remember I commented, quote, that makes sense. So the catch is that it's the Ashnaga bread is what they call themselves. The Burned Fire tribe is what everyone else calls them.
Right.
If you will, the Dashamali are using the proper name, if you will, versus their neighbors who just call them the Burned Fire. These are the names on the map are best described as the Progress Confederacy translations from the local dialect.
Right. What does Radel have to say about the Burned Fire tribe?
Well, first off, he's not. I mean, again, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a smear on the border between the Burned Fire and the Blue Skull. Generally speaking, they keep to themselves. They very clearly mark their border. It's really obvious when you enter their territory. And the trolls just avoid them. They're a bunch of raving lunatics.
I didn't send her to an active crack house.
What?
An active crack house. I mean, the twins have been accused of that, yes.
When you open your phone and everything happens.
No, I love to think that was just like two people walking past the shop. Like, what did we just do here?
It's not an active crack house. It's more of a passive crack house.
It's a passive crack house. Yes.
Oh my goodness. So they're raving lunatics.
From the troll perspective, yes. Now
Okay.
the question becomes: is what does a 7-foot-tall sentient myconoid that rings in at just a smidge over 100 kilos think raving lunatic means? You know.
Interesting. I think We see the glimmer of an idea begin to form. What's the item you want made, Sam?
Since we haven't got there yet.
It is essentially, it will work out to be, I'm just trying to remember the words, permanent level 6 haste.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Why won't it be speedy?
In a setting that would look like it's not like worn, it's like attached to something. And seems slightly too large.
Okay.
It's not for Mysel.
Yeah. Interesting.
Dragon go zoom.
Big zoomy dragon.
Zoomy dragon.
I like to think there's a fair bit of like, because their memories are the same. There was a degree of like, seeing all the full 60 just like going past being like, man, I used to be able to do that.
I used to have racing stripes. Someone repainted.
All the red scales are now gray. How uncool.
For my interest, because this is something Spider will also be organizing over the next couple of days while we're waiting for this contact from the Claws in the Dark.
Well, that's the organization name you have for them, yes.
Yep. What does, because we're so high up, right, and the only access into the city is via the bird people, what does organizing beasts of burden and stuff for trade down there look like?
So, all right. So, if you take a look at the map, just really quickly, Cliff Spider is at the edge of the plateau, but from the plateau perspective is actually sitting in a bit of a valley.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So, and Cliff Spider's been here for 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And even at a conservative estimate of transportation, they could have moved upwards of 5,000 horses up here in that time. And then, of course, there's whatever the locals were already using and were willing to. So beasts of burden are a bit varied. You can get horse. You can get that thing I described as a goosenecked six-legged crocodile that operates like a skateboard.
That's cool. I think I was away for that week, but that's awesome.
Yeah. Chantel wasn't too keen on the description for some reason, but yes, it's called a goosey gurget. It's a six-legged croc with a goose neck and a goat head, and you literally ride it by standing on it.
That's cool.
I
love the way crocodiles move. They're so scuttly.
Yes.
No, don't, not that word.
I did the same. I did the same thing and got the same reaction.
Yeah, no. No, because cockroaches scuttle.
They don't scuttle like a cockroach. They sort of shimmer scuttle.
Honestly, I would argue that they shimmy.
They do shimmy. They do a lot of shimmy.
That's I'm fine with that. Goosey gurgets can shimmy. That way I can give them a feather boa and they'd look great.
That's funny as hell. Uh-oh.
Can't give something that scuttles it.
Oh, yes. I've seen this artwork before. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yup.
Pet crocs.
Yes.
All right. Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, I think as cool as those are, Spider is probably organizing for us to have some horses and a cart and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. So there is essentially a bison type creature, which is commonly used for moving, the Conestoga size adventure wagons. This is a brute sized creature. There's just no other way to put it. And and is more than capable of just walking over most things that would want to eat it. Not quite as bad as a oh gosh, it's the can't remember. It's a buffalo that's in Africa that has it's considered one of the most vicious huntables on the planet. It will aggressively hunt back, including stomping your Land Rover flat.
It's not aurochs, is it?
No, it's auroch. The auroch are extinct. The auroch are what actually were what were domesticated to become cows.
Oh, okay.
But yes, in the case of what we're talking about, the closest thing you're going to get to is sort of an auroch type creature. The intermediate mass gap, if you will, between oversized moose and large deer. Just a big animal, right?
Big. I like him.
And with the sort of antler arrangement that would remind most people of a snowplow. So, head down, walk forward, problem solved. And towing, a 3/4 ton wagon loaded with 4 tons of goods is mostly a non-issue for a couple of these creatures, right?
Yeah.
So.
And this is the thing, like, Spider has no idea if we're gonna find any goods to bring back. It's just like we might want to.
Well, and the other thing too is you'll find out that, for lack of a better way of putting it, there is an equivalent setup for these, this large scale of wagon that basically is the equivalent of a Winnebago, right? Or a camp or a towed camper, right?
Yeah.
It's so. Everything. There's. It's not that you pitch the camp when you kind of thing. It's that you're towing the camp ready to use anytime you choose, right?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I was going for. So that's.
So that's exactly the sort of thing. So for general adventuring, that would tend to be the sort of setup you were. It's sort of like the land yacht to use the overused term. It's got 4 or 5 bunks inside, or 4 or 5 hammocks inside. It's got under deck storage where you can lift up various parts of the floor to get it under stored bins. There's windows to look out. There's a little piece that's been reinforced with some stone underneath it with a little pot-bellied stove. So it's everything you need, and you just sit up on the prow of the thing and steer the auroch type creature, keep it pointed in the way you want to go, right?
It's a rich man's adventuring gear, but it's
exactly
appropriate for what we're doing. So I'm into it.
Alexandria will be very disappointed if she cannot travel in luxury. I don't think she won't actually care. But, I like to think that at the beginning of this journey, if you suggested that there was the luxury way and the not luxury way.
She's glad that we're there now.
So I went back and I double checked something. Some notes I'd made actually here in real world Prince Edward Island at an ox poll for a country fair that we'd been to, and the winning ox team were a pair of oxen, which they managed a 16,000-pound sledge pull.
Wow.
So just for perspective,
16,000
pounds
very, very
is
strong
8 tons. Between 2 creatures, they were pulling 8 tons. That's
Jesus.
That is more scrambled eggs than the birds can eat.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to relate things to real world experiences.
Yep. You got me on that one.
More eggs than the birds can eat and more alcohol than Alexandria can drink, no matter how dire it gets.
Correct.
So yeah.
Well, then maybe Mysel can accompany me. I mean, assuming his interest Because I think the rest of like this day and the next, and all the next, however long it takes for the claws to get in contact, is Spider organizing these things for their trip, and including, I guess he wants to find out if there are any of the Burnfire tribe here in Cliff Spider,
Nope.
or people who know more about them, and how to communicate with them.
So, no role required. You have the social contacts, as it were, and sufficient skills that, and sufficient time that making inquiries, getting other people to make inquiries on your behalf, shuffling around. I mean, technically, you could literally just go check ask the Dashamali, or
Yeah, and I think that's probably who they go to.
Or get Kaz to go check in with the Dashamali when she stops singing upside down on a perch. But yes, so what you'll find out is that everybody knows where they are, so they can be avoided. The troll commentary about it is very obvious when you've reached the edge of their territory. They are so named because they have literally scorched the earth from the edge of their territory in for 1 mile, 1,600 meters. They have and they keep it black. They routinely wander through and, using magical fire, scourge the entire area. So it's really obvious when you've crossed into their territory, and then you're never seen from again, or so you're never heard of again. So everyone just avoids them.
What is the Dashamali presence in Cliff Spider?
Okay, so they quote maintain an embassy. There is a hang on a second. You have met him.
I remember us meeting the one down in Dusseldorf.
Yes, in Dusseldorf. That's right. Yes, Vanix. So okay, yeah. My apologies. So the best way of explaining what's going on up here is no, they actually do not have a quote ambassador here, but they do certainly maintain a branch office. The only way the Dashamali can get in and out of here, for whatever reason, actually, is to get up here the same way you did.
Yeah.
They don't have an underground route that brings them up here. So they just take, for lack of a better way of putting it, they just take night flights. But there are a couple of dozen I suppose there's just no polite way to put it. Dashamali secret agents. I mean, you're hanging. Any amount of time you spend chatting with them makes it very, very, very obvious that essentially they're maintaining their own copy of the Thieves Guild locally.
Yeah.
And you've already been told. I think the twins told you that they were feuding with somebody, because every once in a while an Ebon Elf turns up dead in an alleyway. Usually surrounded by two or three other bodies.
Yeah, right.
So there's obviously something going on. The Dashamali won't explain what, and they all basically tell you the same thing. They're not allowed to explain. They just get their orders. They get their orders from the ambassador in Dusseldorf and do what they're told.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Now, that having been said,
so there's some contact that Kazar has here, though.
Yeah, it was basically what had happened is that she'd gotten word. Word had come up from Dusseldorf to her via one of this lot, basically, who passed it on to one of her folks. Go tell Kaz this is what's up. Make this happen.
Cool. Yeah, because if I recall correctly, I may not. The Dashamali had some contact with the Burnfire tribe in regards to the ship, or they just happened to know where it was. I don't know.
So the best way of explaining it is they the Dashamali know the ship is in Ashnaga territory,
Yeah.
which is the reason it has remained politely lost, and the Dashamali aren't telling anyone.
Yeah. Right.
They're taking full advantage of the apparently exceedingly xenophobic nature of the burned fire, to maintain the security of the crash site.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and as I say, when you're talking to the Dashmali, they refer to them by their proper name, the Ashnaga bread.
And do they have? Go on, Chantal. Go on.
Every time I hear it, I just think of it's like some really special kind of toast, and I
Like spelt toast. Or something.
yeah, it's a new kind of sourdough that we just haven't tried that everyone's now making at home because they're in lockdown.
We've got rye, we've got brioche, we've got ashnaga, we've got
Exactly, right? Like it just sounds like my brain just keeps going to it.
I imagine that it's baked at extremely high temperatures. So the outside is like completely charred over, and then they have to sand off the
Yes, because it sounds so much like a charcoal variety, you know, like
Yeah.
a charcoal bread. Like it, when you cut it, it's black straight through. But anyway, sorry, that's what's happening in my head. Alexandria's not doing anything. She's drunk and passed out. So I am thinking.
Timeline-wise, how long have like orcs and trolls been in the Skyandal plane? Like they've just always lived here, or?
So this is complicated question. What I mean by that is that, without jumping back to my notes, the trolls live almost as long as humans. The orc live noticeably not as long as humans, and the goblinkin are the most short-lived of the lot. So from their perspective, the goblinkin, just to make things even more awkward, don't have a written tradition. They're purely an oral tradition, or an oral tradition culture. And so timekeeping for everybody up here is a little bit funny. But between conversations that you folks could conceivably have between the 22nd, the day of the 22nd, the day of the 23rd, I think what it would become very obvious is, interestingly enough, the primary metronome of time up here is the volcano. So you can sort of, because it is such a regular occurrence, if you will, everyone up here talks about time relative to the volcano, right? Because it's about a 250-year cycle.
Yeah.
200 years of quiet, about 50 years of eruptions, 200. So most of the, almost everyone up here will, in their own way, through the research you folks can do, will get you the idea that most of their histories, in some fashion, be it written, be it oral, be it combinations, be it hieroglyph, whatever, span back right up to the Giantkin Empire.
Yeah. Okay.
And the trolls actually officially track their history almost 500 years further back than the fall of the empire.
When presumably they, along with everyone else, were enslaved by said giants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the only people you're going to have problems getting any kind of timeline on are going to be the Bloodpaw Guardians, which is the local Lunkan tribe. because they just don't. They're functionally as xenophobic as the burned fire. So yeah, there are timeline questions about both the burned fire and the blood paw, but everybody else has sort of got a roughly similar story, plus minus a generation or two, based on their own record keeping. Of the giants showed up, caused a hell of a problem, then the giants went away, and that caused another hell of a problem, and it's been happily ever after.
And presumably there's like various conflict between the various borders, but like,
So
are they
yeah,
or are they mostly peacefully defined at this point?
So in broad terms, the period immediately after the fall of the Giant Kim Empire was practically hell up here because everyone was scrabbling for scraps.
Yeah.
But the territories you see marked on the maps are pretty well defined and really haven't wobbled an awful lot, except since the Progress Confederacy arrived.
Yeah, well, that was my next question: is how much steel
are
we talking as opposed?
I was just going to say there are 2 missing orc clans and 2 missing and 2 or at least 2, if not 3, missing Goblinkin clan at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's probably it would have occurred to myself, like talking to the troll and getting this preliminary map and all that stuff, where like, because mentioned before, like, my soul to an extent has kind of like better access to the pair's long-term memory.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you can't just have those memories. It's just, you go insane.
Yeah.
And so he sort of describes it as just a big collection of vaguely marked boxes. You have to go find it again. So he's probably going to spend a fair amount of time remembering how to speak like Orcan.
Yeah.
And try, like, he's like, I definitely have.
I did this once. I remember it.
Not an insignificant time living here. As much as anywhere else. These are things I know, but I don't know where I know them.
Yeah.
We're going to have to go looking.
So I think the other thing which will become very obvious in your conversations is, while the Progress Confederacy thinks that's helping, the Progress Confederacy moved, set up Cliff Spider, and almost immediately ran afoul of somebody, and that immediately started a shooting war. And then the Confederacy does what it always does, which is just moved in overwhelming force and obliterated whatever the problem was. The problem is if you don't actually know if all you know is what the problem looks like, it's easy to see problems where there aren't any.
Yeah.
So the first 3 or so years were functionally a diplomatic disaster, and you'll notice that there's a broken keep out on the river.
Oh, cut out. Oh
Yep.
no.
Oh no.
I've lost the Michelle.
No.
It's not really time for break, but we could take a break.
I mean, it's almost an hour. We can
Yeah.
take a break.
Let us take a break.
Let us take a break.
We will be back.
We will return. Why hands?
Have you considered that you might like a disguise that doesn't involve being wrapped up in veils?
Yes.
Will you let me do your makeup?
No.
Think they would be afraid.
You look like you need a ride. You look like you need a ride. I'm here to help, but I don't think that I can fit your friend there. Can you ask them if they are going to eat me?
Depends
In
on
that
your
case-
answer.
My name is Michel Vaillancourt. I'm the games master and storyteller for Unlawful Disorder. I've been asked to give a summary of events of the game, but that seems a little strange because, well, that's the job of the players. Don't ask me what the story is, I'm just the guy telling it. So, let's talk about how we got here. So, about a year ago, I saw a bunch of really talented people doing some really cool stuff, and I thought, well, that's cool, I'll have to keep them in mind. And a little while after that, I got a call from a roleplay channel asking me to set up a game. They wanted a European time zone friendly game. So I went back and I called up the cool people doing the cool stuff. So that would be Chantel and company. Cool. So, after that, we took a little bit of time, discussed a good D&D campaign, and I brought forward one of my homebrew worlds. And they looked at me and said, no.
You're sure he's not gonna eat me?
He's not gonna eat you.
Okay, I'm a friend then.
Depends
In
on
that
your
case,
answer.
It's not the name that's on the bounty, and that's all that matters to me.
Okay. Now I just have to remember to respond to it.
Well, you'll do that, won't you, Eric? Eric,
Are you going to eat them?
Considers it.
By the way, you have no clue what she's on about. Like, you've never seen one of these things before.
he's a vegan!
oh, what?
Definitely don't know what that is.
I don't care what he is. He's got big teeth.
You do have big teeth. Not
He
incorrect.
has grasp of the trade tongue is
Oh,
body.
do you? Oh, do you? What do you eat them?
Sort of looks back up. I will not consume that person.
Could you be a little more generic and just say you're not going to consume anyone in the city as well? Just to make it easier.
That'd be great.
So reverting back to Elvis, like,
Just try.
what language?
know?
I'm not gonna eat people.
I know you're not going to eat people.
Language is hard.
I know. Just say it the way I'm telling you to say it. I'm not going to eat the city.
I'm not gonna eat the city. I'm not
Yes.
gonna eat the city.
Yes.
I'm not gonna eat the city.
Sam,
Mental image got too funny.
Why hands?
Have you considered that you might like a disguise that doesn't involve being wrapped up in veils?
Yes.
Will you let me do your makeup?
No.
You,
Think don't be afraid.
you look like you need a ride. You look like you need a ride. I'm here to help, but I don't think that I can fit, your friend there. Can you ask them if they are going to eat me?
Depends
In
on
that
your
case-
answer.
My name is Michel Vaillancourt. I'm the games master and storyteller for Unlawful Disorder. I've been asked to give a summary of events of the game, but that seems a little strange because, well, that's the job of the players. Don't ask me what the story is, I'm just the guy telling it. So, let's talk about how we got here. So, about a year ago, I saw a bunch of really talented people doing some really cool stuff, and I thought, well, that's cool, I'll have to keep them in mind. And a little while after that, I got a call from a roleplay channel asking me to set up a game. They wanted a European time zone friendly game. So I went back and I called up the cool people doing the cool stuff. So that would be Chantel and company. Cool. So, after that, we took a little bit of time, discussed a good D&D campaign, and I brought forward one of my homebrew worlds. And they looked at me and said, no.
You're sure he's not gonna eat me?
He's not gonna eat you.
Okay, I'm a friend then.
Depends
In
on
that
your
case,
answer.
It's not the name that's on the bounty, and that's all that matters to me.
Okay. Now I just have to remember to respond to it.
Well, you'll do that, won't you, Eric? Eric,
Are you going to eat them?
Considers it.
By the way, you have no clue what she's on about. Like, you've never seen one of these things before.
he's a vegan!
oh, what?
Definitely don't know what that is.
I don't care what he is. He's got big teeth.
You do have big teeth. Nothing.
Hero's grasp of the trade tongue is
Oh,
body.
do you? Oh, do you? What do you eat them?
Sort of looks back up. I will not consume that person.
Could you be a little more generic and just say you're not going to consume anyone in the city as well? Just to make it easier.
That'd be great.
So reverting back to Elvish, like,
Just try.
what language?
know?
I'm not gonna eat people.
I know you're not going to eat people.
Language is hard.
I know. Just say it the way I'm telling you to say it. I'm not going to eat the city.
I'm not gonna eat the city. I'm not
Yes.
gonna eat the city.
Yes.
I'm not gonna eat the city.
Sam,
mental image got too funny.
why hands?
Have you considered that you might like a disguise that doesn't involve being wrapped up in veils?
Yes.
Will you let me do your makeup?
No.
You...
Think then be afraid.
You look like you need a ride. You look like you need a ride. I'm here to help, but I don't think that I can fit Your friend there, can you ask them if they are going to eat me?
Depends
In
on
that
your
case-
answer.
My name is Michel Vaillancourt. I'm the games master and storyteller for Unlawful Disorder. I've been asked to give a summary of events of the game, but that seems a little strange because, well, that's the job of the players. Don't ask me what the story is, I'm just the guy telling it. So, let's talk about how we got here. So, about a year ago, I saw a bunch of really talented people doing some really cool stuff, and I thought, well, that's cool, I'll have to keep them in mind. And a little while after that, I got a call from a roleplay channel asking me to set up a game. They wanted a European time zone friendly game. So I went back and I called up the cool people doing the cool stuff. So that would be Chantel and company. Cool. So, after that, we took a little bit of time, discussed a good D&D campaign, and I brought forward one of my homebrew worlds. And they looked at me and said, no.
Traditionally, the number after 2 is not 2 again. I'm just saying.
It was because I said 3, 2, and then went 2. I had to remember 2.
Well, we're back.
We're back
We are
now.
back.
Hello.
Hi.
All right. So yeah.
It occurred to me while on break that I think, particularly for Jamie, it would probably be not necessarily noticeable by someone who wasn't Spider, but probably Spider would have picked up on it. Is as we're learning more about the region, particularly when it starts being like, yeah, we're missing like 2 orc tribes and a bunch of goblin tribes, and they're, you know, missing heavy quotation marks.
Sure.
That like it's obviously, you know, it's not a great conversation to have at any given point, but there is clearly like it's hitting Mysel harder than you would expect.
Yeah.
And like I said, like he's not. It's not for no one else is really picking up on it, but Spider is very good at that. And be just this edge of it. Of there's like there's this. It's sort of like, it's not like upsetting. It's like, but there's like every now and again, like Mysel has an edge that he just doesn't normally have.
Marshall, why don't we stop for some afternoon tea, huh?
Okay.
And find some place that serves appropriate scones and jam.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The place, I've said this before, but it's a high altitude trade hub.
Yeah.
So it's got the equivalent of an airfield and a caravan port, right? And that is functionally the crossroads indirectly for 3 major cultures and probably 5 others. So the effect is that it's sort of, if you can sort of imagine it as you could find it in a bistro, there's probably one of them. You know, I mean, it's just that kind of city. You know.
You doing all right, kid?
Yeah.
You just seem a little off, and I wanted to make sure you're all right.
Yeah. I had a conversation with Alexandre's grandmother. And I used to have a family of my own. So came up, it's like relating to the idea of being worried for your children and your grandchildren. And we used to live not here, but like this broad area of the world.
It's just
It's not a, you know,
you personally, or is this a Heo thing?
no, me.
Oh, right. So people used to, humans used to live up here too.
Well, they had to go somewhere when the Giant Kin Empire collapsed.
You're right.
I mean, they eventually got further and further out, but this was where they'd lived for over 300 years. And then going back before then.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I mean, it's called the Great Darkness for a reason. It wasn't great, but every now and again, enough people would carve out a little space that they could live in. But a lot of petty tyrants, a lot of warlords who just took by force. So yeah, it was on my mind, and I guess the idea of what the Confederacy was doing.
Yeah, speaking of petty tyrants,
It doesn't change. Well, it changes on the small scale. It doesn't really change on the big scale. In broad terms, it's the same. And it wasn't always people who were themselves you can do a lot of bad things when you want to look out for your own, and when that's more important than the other people. And at the time, a lot of people came from a point when that was a matter of survival. It was, but even as it started to settle, there was still some that would, and there still are now. Just the excuses change. And sometimes the scale gets bigger.
Yeah.
But I guess it was particularly fresh at the moment.
What do you think it would take to unite the people up here?
Could be common threat is usually an easy one, but at the same time,
Well, that's what bothers me is the Confederacy came up here and they didn't fight back. Well, I presumably they did, but not collectively.
I would assume the Confederacy didn't reach common threat status.
I see.
If they wipe out, if you don't get on with your neighbors and all they do is take out your neighbors, you become wary. But the threat is there, but it's stopped. If they had continued, that might have. But that's also not generally a long-term solution. That only lasts while the threat does, and then it kind of just falls apart. Ultimately, you need to see past your bubble.
In the vision we saw, there were thousands of Orkin, all under the same leadership.
Well, that's the other option. Charismatic leader can do a lot, but not always good. They give them common purpose if they can create the impression that there's a common threat.
Yeah, they didn't seem too happy, that's for sure. Worryingly, their leadership also has the ability to create portals. So, you know.
Well, it's not the first time there's been some kind of massive threat on the horizon.
Yeah, I just don't know if we need an army to face this threat.
Oh. Armies are overrated. The problem with an army is if you have one, you want to use it. And I get the thinking, I get the thought process, you know, you want that deterrent, but the cycle just continues.
Right. Yeah. No, I meant more like cover. If we're going to get into that mountain and it's guarded by 10,000 Orkin, you know, I'm hoping, well, I suppose between you and maybe we can just go unnoticed enough.
It's an option.
I've never doubted that a small group of determined individuals could make a serious change the world. Armies are just ways to enforce old worldviews, right?
Everyone likes to think they're doing the right thing. Not a lot of people do horrible things for the sake of it. It's not, some do, but for the most part, they have a justification.
Yeah, I mean,
the ends justifying the means.
That priestess wants to actually destroy the entire continent. That to me is pretty unhinged.
Yeah. Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if, at least in her mind, she has a justification.
Yeah.
That the alternative is worse. Or maybe she is just crazy. But it's really easy to dismiss people as just crazy.
That's true. At least it brought me some sort of solace. I used to think she was incredibly clever, but she tried to offer us the safety of our friends and family in exchange for letting her destroy the world. Not exactly the most bright idea.
I mean, I haven't had the chance to meet her, but from what you've both told me, she's not short on confidence.
Yeah. Quite. Don't get me wrong, she's cunning in her own way, but like maybe not as clever as I'd been worried about. Did you ever know, I mean, obviously not the people who are here now, but have you spent much time with trolls and orcs and goblins and stuff?
Not recently, but like for a while. Theo and I traveled a lot, covered a lot of ground. had to spend a lot of time in a lot of places, chasing leads that ultimately went nowhere. And like I said, for a while, we settled for a bit, but we still sort of went out.
I was hoping we might be able to find someone who could help us talk to the Ashnaga, but it seems like that might be off the cards. Though it occurs to me now, given the way that they seem to worship, that they might be kind of interested in Heo.
Hadn't considered that. I've been trying to remember, when you get to my age, memory
Never ceases to amuse me.
memory is hard. We weren't designed to keep them, to have that length of memories, and adding a bunch of Heos on top doesn't help.
Understandable.
So sometimes it can take a while for me to, I guess, find the information I want.
Right.
So I have been trying to remember the Orcan I used to know. I definitely at one point was fluent, but I don't know. But at the same time, worst case, there are other way. I have other means to find the language, I guess.
Well, maybe we can put you in touch with some Orcan here in the city, just help you brush up.
I might, yeah.
Dialects might be different, but
Reminder: the cook crew at the at
that's
the
right.
inn.
Yeah.
It's not a Brazilian barbecue style restaurant. It's an Orcan barbecue style restaurant.
might have to. That might be how I spend my day tomorrow.
All right. Well, we've got a few other things to organize, but we should go check on the bird brains.
I mean, I don't know. I can relate to an extent with what Alexandra is going through. Having abilities you didn't necessarily ask for. Having an awareness that for however much good you can do with them, you can do as much, if not more, harm. And knowing that other people, when they respond to you, in a lot of cases are responding to those abilities, not to you. And then adding on to that this additional, I guess, responsibility. This potentially this entity that could well just be manipulating her. To an extent, is almost certainly.
It just probably thinks that its ends justify its means.
That is the worry.
Back to work.
Yeah, we should get back though, just to make sure they.
Haven't set the whole town on fire.
Oh, I don't
Before
think.
my machine conked out, there had been a question about how well the individual tribes, whatever, got along up here.
Yeah.
And so the short version of the long question is that same species, there are rivalries, particularly amongst the orcs. They are the most tolerant of each other, if you will. They're also quite honestly the ones who have taken the most aggressive stance about they've built themselves around a central river and other valuable resources that allow them to basically weather out most things. The odd ducks of the lot are the poison ash, who are generally unpleasant, and every other orc looks at them sideways. Details, unfortunately, are sketchy as to why. The orcs won't talk about it. They'll gossip endlessly about the burned fire as a bunch of lunatics, but yeah. But the poison ash, they don't talk too much about. The blood paw, you'll notice basically their territory comes down to their side of the river. They don't cross the river. If you don't go into their territory, they don't talk to you, they don't look at you, you just never know they're there. If you do go into their territory, somebody will find your remains eventually. The ones that are kind of the most random, I guess, in their idea of what constitutes diplomacy and neighborly are the goblin. They are a best described as bored Irish princes. And so consider cattle raiding and competitive live weapons fire shoots, as in stand at opposite ends of a field and shoot at each other. Excellent ways to pass boring summer afternoons. And so the goblin kid, and on top of that, they're actually really good warriors. The orc are physically stronger, physically bigger, have longer, have better weapons, and better armor, and they don't particularly like scrapping with the goblin kid.
Right.
Because an orc will decide, you know, I've had more than enough of this for one day. The goblin, and that's about the point where the goblin can pops the top off the second bottle of alcohol and says, "I'm just getting started." So, but like I say, they're a much more war as entertainment, almost gladiatorial culture. And so the orcs don't particularly like being anywhere near them, because if they're bored, you just might be the entertainment, for lack of a better way of putting it. The good news is they're just as likely to pick fights with each other if they're bored. The only reason that like I say, the trolls basically ignore them entirely on the basis of the fact that trolls can just soak the damage. It just takes the goblins so long to get around to actually knocking a troll down that it's just eventually the amusement value runs out.
Trying to chop down a tree that occasionally hits you back,
and then periodically regrows the chunk that you've just hewn out. Yes.
Yeah, right.
Eventually the charm wears off.
You have to be a special kind of vicious for that kind of thing.
Or exceedingly bored. It's not that they haven't tried, you know. There's a reason that, and you know, basically the trolls are as myconoids, like damp conditions. So the actual, where everyone else's definition of how far is it that I can exercise power outwards in terms of travel, the troll territories are more defined as how far can I easily find comfortable terrain to wander around in. So literally, the reason that their territory snakes up between the Clay Spirit and the Gifted Whisper is because there's a river there.
Yeah.
If the river wasn't there, they wouldn't go there.
Had this image of my head of two trolls having a conversation, and as a goblin just hacking at one of their legs, and then there's like, you okay with this? And he was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, look, he's a rescue. Still trying to housebreak him. He'll get it. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Friend, you appear to have a case of the goblins.
Yes. So yeah.
I'm now just imagining a goblin and a troll married to each other, and this is just like how they argue.
Oh, that sounds so cute. I'm ready for this to be a sitcom.
There's Odd Couple, and then there's that.
So somewhat more violent Odd Couple. Only somewhat.
Only somewhat.
So yeah. But generally speaking, the orcs tend to be the most. The orcs are the busiest with their own affairs, I guess is the best way to put it. They're nomadic herders. And so they're on the move around their territories. They have things to do based on the season. They're a shamanistic nomadic herding culture, who have areas within their. Yeah, keep in mind, the width of the scale on the map there, right? Their territories are 20 to 40 kilometers across. There's 4 or 5 100 square kilometers that each of them control, right? And we're not talking about a population of 100,000 up here. It's noticeably less than that. So, they've got, an area that's theirs. They're doing their thing in it. They know their neighbors are around. If they need something, they would prefer to trade with other orcs first. But cliff spiders right there, and every once in a while there's interesting stuff there that you can't get otherwise. And if there's trouble to be found, it's going to be the Goblinkin stirring it up, almost guaranteed.
Well, at least you know where you're going. What did you do this time? How much do we pay you to stop?
Cool.
So yeah, that is sort of the state of affairs, if you will. Yeah. The geopolitic of the southeastern peninsula.
Yeah. Okay.
Or southeastern plateau, whichever way you want to put it. Interestingly enough, the folks from the Confederacy calls it the plateau. The locals call it the peninsula.
Interesting.
The other thing I just want to point out is if you take a look, I opted to put the actual contour lines in on top of the plateau. You'll notice that it goes from the area around the plateau, basically, quote, valley level for the river coming up from Dusseldorf, is about 3,000 meters, right? The top of the plateau is about 750 meters above that. So that is just about the altitude that Cliff Spider is at, right? Somewhere between 3,500, 3,700 in that window. You're kind of in this, like I say, Cliff Spider's sort of sitting in a terminus valley for this for the river, right? If you do not have Khazra with you, for every contour line above 3,000 meters, your difficulty to do anything more complicated than walk quickly actually will require a fortitude roll that starts at a 15 for every altitude band. Okay.
Yeah.
So what Khazra basically does is gives you immunity all the way up to 4,000 meters.
Yeah, I was surprised on cliff spiders like lower than the the plateau. I thought we were like up on a mountain.
Yeah, no, it's just a little bit under the 3,700 meter mark.
Yeah, whereas like the rest of the Progress Confederacy's territory is at 4,100 meters, which is like.
Oh no. That is
Right.
41. That boundary is.
Oh, I see. That's the Black Thunderkin, and that's the Ivory
Yeah,
Scorpion.
that is an uplands on the plateau.
I understand now. I
The
misinterpreted.
river. If you follow the river, that is the river is sitting in a valley, if you will, that opens up into this big area that the Confederacy has acquired. That's all at about 3,500, 3,700 meters. But
Okay.
yes, then you've got on either side, like I say, the river is sort of this valley. There are these two hillish structures, if you will, and those are those are full loops, if you will. Right.
Yeah, I understand.
And those
now.
are, so yeah, if you're down at the river, you're looking up.
Yeah, so we definitely need someone providing climate control.
Yeah.
Air. Which I think Alexandre can also do,
Yes.
but not
Yes.
as easily.
Just to think about it.
Yeah. So the burn fire, they sit at that same level.
Interestingly
trolls
enough,
with the-
they're actually the only the trolls, because they have that little waterfall that kind of spills off the blue skull. Sort of their territory dips a little bit down in terms of altitude, but the burn fire actually officially claim everything down on that little promontory as well.
Hmm.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think Meisel and Spider finish whatever work they need to get done,
Yeah.
and we head back to the
Okay.
find out
There's
what.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, and so some of this is going to be stuff that sort of crawls in other conversations during the 23rd as well. But for purposes of play, it's now late afternoon, coming up on supper time on the 22nd, when you guys will rejoin with Alexandre back at the staggering clock.
Same day?
Now, if basically the answer is that then she's still asleep in a corner, then that's cool. We can just time skip ahead, and it can be whenever it makes sense for Alexandre to be up and about on the 23rd.
Alexandre,
because all of the work that Spider wants to get done, as well as some of the other stuff that he wants to get done, languages, blah blah blah, can easily be spread out over 2 days.
Yeah.
Alexandre would have woken up around. Should have learned this. Do the temples close?
So
Or is
the
there
whole
always someone
bloody
there?
So the whole bloody place, the whole bloody town basically folds up at around 1 o'clock in the morning, or a little bit after midnight. Essentially, when the town guard is pretty much feeling like they're done dealing with people's BS, they just everybody closes up.
Okay. So the temples work the same way as the businesses, is what I wanted to check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Saints Rise doesn't go dark, but it gets awfully thin on population. From officially everything would be closed over there. Yes.
Okay. So early in the morning.
On the 23rd.
On the 23rd,
Mm-hmm.
Alexandre will head back to. Which one was it? The temple of the god of air,
Mm-hmm.
where she spoke with Voldo,
Mm-hmm.
and she wants to see if she can find Voldo.
Yay, Voldo.
Mm-hmm.
Put it. Yes. Caretaker Voldo. Gnome at the Temple of Malfa. Yes. And just so yes. You in fact will find Voldo with a broom sweeping the stairs leading into the temple.
Hi, I spoke to you yesterday.
Oh yes, I remember you. You're the young lady with the excitable friend.
Yes. You said if I had questions, I could come back.
Always. That's what I'm here for. How can I help? Would you like to come in and have some tea?
Yes.
Oh, come with me then. Mind the dust pile. The cats will be playing in it in no time at all, I'm sure, but that's okay. It'll keep me employed. Come on.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. So he will lead you inside. The place is modestly lit. There's a dim coolness to the air. There's sort of this otherworldly feeling about it. It's got that quality of a warm breeze in a hayfield in August when you're just watching clouds roll by in the sky. And this chill kind of undertone that tickles around your feet. All right. Would you prefer a honey in yours, or do you like something else? It's a rose and nettle that's native to the local area. It's an interesting combination. Some people find it a smidge stringent. I find it fine the way it is, but a lot of people would like a little bit of sweetener with it.
I will have it as it is, and then if it is too stringent, I can add honey.
An excellent decision. You seem to be very, very smart about a lot of things. So many people would just prejudge the moment and say, oh, I know that it's going to be too stringent without actually testing, and they miss that initial experience. Here you go.
Thank you.
It's always important to take that moment and sample, don't you think?
Yes. Yes.
So all around you, by the way, like I say, it's dimly lit because there are louvers on the windows to keep the brilliance of the outdoor sun at high altitude a little subdued, so you can kind of, there's a dimness to the place that makes it easy to think. There are banners hanging from down with various scenes of how the wind does things in the world. One is a banner of a storm, another is of a windmill. One is of a ship at sea, another is of a swaying tree. All of these ways that just the wind is everywhere.
How much do you know about music?
I play a pretty mean piccolo, but I wouldn't. Most people just aren't into piccolo concertos. Is unfortunate. But I suppose the question is how much do you think I need to know to be able to answer your question?
I just wondered because it's
I can read sheet music.
I will remember that. I have a lot of questions, and they don't necessarily make sense.
Oh, those are the best questions.
Okay.
See, if the questions don't make sense, it means you have a clean slate.
Okay.
The mistake everyone has is when they show up and they say, well, the question makes perfect sense. It's because they've already sort of decided the answer. They don't really want to learn anything. They just want confirmation of what they already know. It's the questions that don't make sense are the ones where you've got a completely clean slate and can learn something really genuinely new.
Okay. Well, what do you know about prophecies?
Oh, okay. So there's two kinds of prophecies is the first thing. The first thing is that there are two kinds, and it's important to decide. The first one is the small p prophecy, and those are the interesting ones. The big P prophecies are almost always just a bad spelling for propaganda.
Oh. How do you know which one is which?
It depends how loudly they're being yelled.
So if the prophecy is very quiet,
it's probably got more truth to it. See, the thing is that prophecies, almost by definition, are generalisms. The more specific a prophecy is, the more likely it is that someone is trying to explain something they already know is going to happen or are engineering because they want some credibility. And let's be honest, if you can convince everybody that that a particular, divinity or a particular ascended saint is the reason for your success, then you've got a whole lot of people who want to hang out with you and take advantage of that hotline you've got to the big important stuff. It's the small p prophecies, the ones that people just say, I'm told this is how the world's going to work sometime. Don't know if it's going to be now. Don't know if it's going to be ever. I'll keep my eyes open in case I see something, though. The stuff that people just live quietly. Those are the really interesting prophecies. Those are the ones that are actually likely going to come true. And there have been a few.
What ones do you know?
Well, for example, at the risk of being a little bit seditious, the founding of the deliverance of the dawn. That was a prophecy.
What was it?
Well, the Grand Knight who first founded it took his followers, or excuse me, their followers. Very specifically, he refused to be. The individual in question is often represented as either male or female, and there's some questions if it wasn't 2 or 3 different people all working in concert. But the point is that whoever they are, the Grand Knight, basically were told to go to a place where wheat floats on water. And when they found that place, a place of sweet water with floating wheat, their people would be able to build a great city and live in comfort without want, and use that as a basis for a whole brand new way of treating people. And it turns out it's one of those funny things where the translation didn't work very well because it was written in an intermediary language. Floating grain is actually rice, and rice grows in water. So they found an area about 100 square acres of just natural rice paddies being fed by a spring source, and that's where the capital was founded.
Oh.
And that was a small p prophecy. That was something that had been hanging around since the mid days of the Giantkin Empire, as a thing. If y'all wanted to just pack up and go, you could, but no one was brave enough to try until someone finally said, "Hey, maybe it's me, and so I should go look." And they did, and they had a few people that decided, "Well, you're going, and you seem brave, so I guess I'll go with you." And that founded a whole empire.
How do you hear a prophecy?
Quietly. He smiles at you and sips his tea. But you knew that already. We talked about that earlier. I know what you're trying to say. How do you find out if there's a prophecy? How do you find out if what you've heard is a prophecy? Well, the easier way to do it is to say, if someone's yelling it, it's the big P kind. It's not worth paying attention to. It's the ones that leave you going, I think I've heard of this before. And then you have to go dig it out of an old book somewhere, or maybe show up at a temple and talk to a gnome who serves you tea. He smiles at you.
But what if there is a small P prophecy, but you haven't heard it, but you probably should have?
That's a really odd question, because by definition, if you should have heard it, you would have heard it.
But if you learn about it, and you should have...
Well, then you just found out about it, didn't you?
But...
Small P prophecies are lived. Go to the people living it.
But that's not a prophecy. That's just present day.
Prophecies are something written about the present day by someone who never lived to see the present day. A prophecy is, by definition, someone who said, sometime in the future, long after I'm gone, this thing's going to happen, and the world, and something big's going to come of it. That's all a prophecy is. It's a hope. It's a hope told to people who need hope. Sometimes that prophecy is just good wishes. The only way, there's a kind of a scholarly, academic, religious joke that runs along the lines of you only find it's a prophecy afterwards. Because by definition, if it's not your time, you don't get to see it happen. So a story about something that's going to happen doesn't turn out to be a prophecy until it happens and you look back on it and go, oh, that's what they were talking about.
But, okay.
Keep in mind, what? I'm sorry, ma'am. What, miss? What's your name?
Alexandre.
Alexandre. That's a very, very It's kind of got a bit of an elven ring to it. I suppose that shouldn't surprise me. Very, very. It's got its own sort of musical feel to it. I like it. It's a very pretty name. So yeah, Alexandre, just do keep in mind that part of the problem here is you're basically asking the person you met yesterday for 4.5 minutes and have been talking to and drinking tea for 11.5 minutes today to summarize 11 years of scholarly research. There's going to be a few shortcuts.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, I'm willing to talk your ear off. I mean, it's literally my job to explain these things to people.
Okay. So, if I don't see a prophecy, then it is not for me. And if I see one, then it is.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. So let's just presume, since you're here, that the Grand Knight was a lady. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so and let's just presume, because we all like happy stories, that she's got a good relationship maybe with her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom would have heard those same stories about going somewhere, mm-hmm. finding a field that had grain floating on it and water that just bubbled up out of the earth and was always going to be clean and abundant, and that you could go there and build a whole brand new way of life that was free from the evils and tyranny of the Giant Kin Empire. Her mom would have heard those stories, but they never happened in her life. It wasn't her prophecy. Her daughter is the one who went there, heard those words, saw that place and said, this must be what it means, and made it happen. It was her prophecy. Do you see the difference?
Mm-hmm. Do you ever, do the divinities or the ascended saints ever actually talk to you?
Oh, absolutely. You wind up usually playing poker with Leah on Tuesdays, but he kind of looks at you for a moment. No.
No.
He giggles as a sip of his tea. Okay, so that's a really awkward question. Because really what you're looking for is faith. And what you want is proof, and proof and faith are actually mutually exclusive.
What if you have
By definition.
What if you have proof but you don't have faith?
That's the whole point. You can't have faith if you have proof. Faith is a belief that something exists or will happen or is intended in absence of any proof. The instant you have proof, you don't need faith. Miracles are really, really convenient in that way. And so what can I tell you? Well, I suppose from a certain point of view, yes, I can do stuff as a result of the blessings of my patron deity. I'm obviously, Malfa. Every day he gestures and you can feel this chill breeze roll through, like someone's turned modern air conditioning on for a moment. Oh, that feels nice. Now, is that magic? Of course it's magic. Where does it come from? Some people will tell you it's because I read a book. I'll tell you it's because Malfa says he wants it that way. Who's right? One's faith, one's proof, except that I don't know what proof you've got. So I guess you have to take it on faith. Everything that is attributed to the Ascendeds or the Primes is in some way faith. It's belief in stories and moments that were recorded by people whose great-grandparents no longer exist anymore, and great-grandchildren don't exist anymore, and 5 times over that. And they were written down, they were told, they were found in times when hope was in short supply. And those moments where a miracle happened. Did it happen the way it was recorded? Probably not. Does that matter? Probably not. The important part is that somewhere inside, you believe that it makes a difference.
Mm. What do you know about the volcano?
It's tall, black, spits fire. That's probably a little vague, but then so again was your question.
Okay. You said that strange questions could, are there any strange stories about the volcano?
Well, I mean, actually, one moment. Michelle wants to find something out. Where's my... fancy page here. I want that one. 2d6 will do the job. Excuse me. Oh, not a bad roll for him. 16, 19. Yeah, okay. Well. Okay, strange stories. Well, obviously enough, that was one of the places the Anvil Heart Company went. And you've anybody who's any kind of a casual historian of this area winds up hearing about the Anvil Heart Company eventually, because they're just such a big part of Confederate history, of course. But I am aware that one of the Orcan tribes up in further up the river valley, before it gets into the Central Plain, is of the belief that there's something that the volcano itself is some kind of a thing, that it has its own personality, that it has its own spirit, if you will, and they apparently talk to it.
They talk to it?
And yes, and they apparently every once in a while get messages from the volcano itself asking them to do things like move things move things out of the way. And if they do that, then they find out that they actually don't get parts of their territory wrecked by volcanic flows. So that's very interesting.
Yes, it is.
The volcanic eruptions themselves, I'm not much of a geologist, but my understanding is it's a particularly interestingly gooey kind of lava. I think that's the right term. Gooey. And as a result is very slow flowing, but is also very, very hard to stop.
Oh, so not fast, slow moving.
Right. But is very, very sticky and tends to stay hot for a long time.
Oh.
So it's kind of like really thick pancake batter. You know how you can pour some pancake batter into the griddle, and it just keeps going hiss and sizzle and keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you wonder if it's going to hit the edge of the pan.
No, yeah, but yes, good.
Okay, so we really need to improve your quality of your pancakes, but that's okay.
What? Can you tell me about the Anvil Heart Company?
I don't know much about them beyond the fact, of course, they're heroes. Oh gosh, what was the woman's? So there's I think there were 6 of them.
Mm.
They're all fairly tall and good looking, of course, based on every story I've ever heard from a bird. They found some fantastic treasure, but depending who you talk to, it was either a wind-up. It was either a wind-up automaton of some kind, or it was some kind of a scepter, or it was some kind of. Oh gosh, the stories go on and on and on. I think the biggest thing that's most interesting is that they managed to actually do their exploration without bothering anybody.
What do you mean?
Well, the locals all have very, very strong traditions about writing down anything that's out of the ordinary.
Mm.
And so they really don't have any record of the passage. It's almost exclusively something from the Confederacy's records.
So nobody saw them pass. They just did.
Yes.
How does anybody know that they were there at all?
The stories. See, that's that whole bit about faith. The company said they went. They came back with a pile of stuff that seemed to verify their stories, and it's not like anyone could go and retrace their voyage by definition of getting up here, up until about 10 years ago when the full 60 suddenly showed up and started helping out. No one's even really sure how the heck they got up here.
So nobody could have done anything until the full 60 turned up.
Pretty much. Well, I mean, there have been expeditions up into the mountains and stuff before. Don't get me wrong. You know, I mean, it's just mountains. You can climb them. It's just that mountains are also notoriously difficult to climb and are, you know, ridiculously prone to murdering people who are bad at climbing. So,
but Lucas Edgewater had an airship.
yes. Oh, yes. The good sky captain. I think he's got a yeah, he's another one of those figures. Dashing hero, good pedigree, good hair, you know, the whole 9 yards. They've even got a statue of him. Yeah.
They didn't know each other?
Well, please understand that sort of predates my time. I mean, I do have some gray, but...
But I'm sorry, I meant like the stories don't connect them.
None of the ones I've heard, no. Now, just so we're clear, I'm primarily a religious sort of person as opposed to a historian. You might actually want to go down and check the Hall of Records in the Founders District for actually historical stuff. But yeah,
I might have to. Oh, I have one more question because I don't. I mean, I have loads of questions, but one more. What's the difference between how people from the Progress Confederacy talk to divinities and saints and the way that they talk to divinities and saints in the Deliverance?
Well, please understand, I've never practiced worship in the Deliverance. But that having been said, he's going to pause for a moment, kind of look around. There's a bustle that's started. People have been coming in, or people lighting little incense sticks and candles off to a side. And there's a few various other people dressed in religious attire who are moving around, you know, dusting things and straightening chairs, and off to one side someone's in the process of getting a soup pot going, and there's obviously a couple of street urchins who are waiting very patiently for whatever super stew it is that's being made right now. And there's just a whole bunch of little things going on around, and he's going to frown for a moment. Worship comes from one of two places. And he smiles slightly. Faith or belief. Or faith or evidence, if you will. Some people are of the opinion that they've been told that this is what a particular divinity or a particular ascended likes. Other people look around and say, I live like this, and they're supposed to represent who I am, so I want to do it this way. And that's sort of the big difference between the Progress Confederacy and the Deliverance of the Dawn. The Progress Confederacy is of the opinion that because they value order and structure, and it seems to be the most efficient way of managing vast scales of networks, of people, of things, of places, that it would be the only way to organize something like as complicated as, well, heaven.
they approach it from that perspective, very structured, very detailed, with particular rituals that have particular flavors based on how they understand things should be if they made sense, as we often say, as in heaven as on ground. The Deliverance of the Dawn are much more of the opinion that particularly the Ascendeds were just people. They were people like you, they were people like me, who lived very good lives in very bad times, who made the hardest of choices in the worst of situations, and stayed fundamentally good people. And so we're rewarded for that. And if they're just good people, well, good people don't need a fancy parlor room and china plates and all the other good stuff to serve you tea, he says, tapping at the tin cup that she's drinking out of. The issue is that the tea's good, and it's served because you want to have a conversation with somebody. And that's the best way I can explain it. Varys over there, every morning, his thing is making sure all of those candles have got all of the dust off the glass, and that all of the wicks are exactly the right length, and they're all lit at exactly the right time. He thinks that structure and order are the things that make the most sense. I like tin teacups. He smiles. I don't know either of us are wrong. I'm pretty sure neither of us are. I don't know that either of us are right, and I'm pretty sure neither of us are wrong.
Do we have different ascended saints?
Oh, no.
They're all the same.
Yes. So the Ascendeds, all interestingly enough, the Ascended Saints are all from a period at the tail end of the war and into the beginning of the Great Darkness.
But we don't know what happened during the Great Darkness because it was dark.
Well, he smiles. Yes and no. See, the funny thing is about the Great Darkness is that by definition, people lived then. We know that because we're here now.
Mm-hmm.
If no one had survived the Great Darkness, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
And we know the kind of people who set up the countries that we live in. We have the creation of all of the three great nations is well documented in their own histories. So we know how those people were at that point in time, and we know how they were at the beginning. Scared and afraid and refugees from a collapsed empire. And so you can sort of make guesses about the kind of people they were in between. Things you can take on faith. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that the Deliverance of the Dawn went looking for a place that happened to grow rice. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Shining Capital was founded on a bay that was abundant in fish.
What was the Empire of the Burning Lash founded on?
Yeah, that's a funny question because the answer I have makes no sense, which is an active volcano. He laughs. But maybe that's important to them in a way that I just don't understand because I don't know much about them.
I suppose.
Of all the places I would want to build a house, I'm not sure the slope of an active volcano would be one of them. But then again, I guess you wouldn't have to worry about the floor being cold either.
And maybe you have somewhere to cook your rice and your fish.
Yeah. But the thing is these are all cultures that just didn't happen overnight. They were people who already believed these things were important and found places that they could do the things that were important to them. You seem troubled.
Well, yes. I am traveling to do something, but I don't know what that thing is.
He nods.
And I'm supposed to make a decision of some kind, but I don't know. Because I don't know what the thing is I'm supposed to do, I can't make a decision about it. And I can't think about it. But I've been told stories about it, but not about it. So it's troubling.
Of course. He sighs. You seem, and please understand, I mean no criticism, and I certainly don't mean to increase your burden. You seem to be someone who has an awful lot of responsibility on their shoulder that doesn't exist. Well, let me put it to you this way. What if I was to tell, do you see the stew pot over there? He says, gesturing, and there's a couple people who are now in the process of, basically you get the impression that what they're making is stone soup. At this point, there's probably a dozen street folk who've gathered around, and one of them has got a little bag of grain they're pouring into the pot, and another one has got a can of a bottle of milk. And so everyone is adding something. So they're making stone soup, if you know the story, right?
Yeah.
And you are aware that there's magic happening over there as well. Okay. The what comes out of that pot is going to be greater and richer than what went into the pot.
Yes. Yes.
But imagine in that stew pot, we told Jeremiah there that he had to make stew, but he wasn't allowed to light a fire. What kind of a stew do you get without fire?
A cold one?
You don't get stew. Stew's hot.
Okay.
You might get something else, but you don't get stew. Now, is that his responsibility that we won't let him light a fire?
No. You won't let him do it?
If we don't even... Okay, so let me do it a different way. So he's allowed to light a fire, but we won't tell him where the ingredients are.
So
He still has to make the stew. Is it his responsibility that he doesn't have any ingredients if we won't tell him enough about where to find the recipe or the ingredients?
I mean, still, yes.
No.
Because he's supposed to make it.
At the point someone else takes away the things you need, it's no longer your responsibility.
Feels like my responsibility.
He nods. We're all taught that, particularly in the Confederacy. We are a meritocracy, of course. Our self-worth is tied to what we contribute, what we do. And we always want to be better and do more and helpful, because that's how we make a better civilization. But there's a limit to that. They don't tell you that, of course. It's a footnote in most of the books. It's usually on the last page, written in a different language, often left out. Gets edited, page shortage. Responsibility is defined by what you can do. if there are 3 people who want to make stew, one of them is responsible for mixing, one of them is responsible for ingredients, one of them is responsible for fire. If the person who makes the fire doesn't do their part, it's not the responsibility of the other 2 for the first person's failure. Your responsibility ends in everything with the parts that you can do. If people won't tell you what it is you're supposed to do, by definition, you can't do it. That's the end of your responsibility. It's their responsibility to tell you.
And if they don't?
He smiles. Then you can't do it. And that's the end of your responsibility.
So then I just go home?
Well, you can have some more tea if you like. Did you? I couldn't tell if did you add the sweetener or not? What did you think?
I didn't need the sweetener.
Yeah,
It's
see?
it's nicer than alcohol.
Yes, I agree. I don't know. I find most alcohols have got a really ugly taste after about the 12th, particularly when it's the second time you visit it. Yeah, the tea doesn't seem to do that. He smiles.
Thank you.
He smiles and he nods. You're always welcome here, Alexandri. And any one of my compatriots here will be happy to chat with you even if I'm not here. This is a place about being part of the wind. And the wind is one of those things that most people don't stop to think too much about because you can't see it. All you can see is its influence. If the wind isn't there, the grain doesn't get ground. If there's too much of the wind, this grain still doesn't get ground, but now you've got to fix the mill. There's a lot of things in the world like that. Too much or not enough, and it's not your responsibility. Because it's the part in between that you get to control. I hope you have a better day, and you're always welcome to come back.
Thank you.
I have it on very good authority from a young lady who's about 11 years old, that there are blue banners there with the little Tinkerbells on them that over there. If you run down the street waving one, screeching at the top of your lungs, it makes you feel much better. He smiles at you.
I don't think I will do that. But thank you.
Mind, you never know. He grins.
And she
Okay.
leaves to find something that's gonna get rid of the kick-ass headache that's starting to build.
Somewhere, both Chevalier and Mysel are feeling mildly exasperated, and they don't know why. It's like, also, while Chevalier wouldn't have cared, I do want to get just a little huffy about the idea of there being 6 Anvil Heart members. I was like, there was 7 members.
6 and a scepter, friend. 6 and a scepter.
A wind up automaton.
6 and a scepter. 6 men and a little scepter. She will head back to presumably have breakfast.
Uh-huh.
see Spider wrangling two enormous giant moose oxen things.
What are you doing?
Wrangling two enormous giant. Weren't you paying attention?
What? I hope you're going to take care of them because I cannot.
Yeah, obviously.
Why?
They're going to be our guides. He like pats one on the neck.
How are you planning on getting it down there?
Well, presumably the same way it got up.
Is Kaz that strong?
I think there's other ways down for these fellas.
So why do you have them now? Why don't we just meet them there?
Because it's harder to organize something when you're not there in person. I wanted to make sure we had good stock. I don't trust people I can't see.
Or oxen.
Well, no,
You
the people
can't see.
the people who own the oxen.
Is there something that you're not telling me?
What do you mean?
And she just kind of pulls him over to a side. Genevieve said that you know something. You haven't said it.
I know something about
I don't know.
Jamie's having a moment. I don't remember that. So
Genevieve said, you haven't told her.
Oh, right. I just sort of figured like you sort of worked it out by now.
Worked out what?
About, you know.
No.
I don't want you to feel uncomfortable or like I'm lying to you, because I'm not. Well, I mean, I was. I guess I still am, but not like meaningfully. It's just the story that I tell everyone.
Spider, I have absolutely no idea what you are talking about.
Well, I think you've worked out by this point that I'm not Lord Cedric Edgewater's bastard son.
Oh, yeah?
Lucas is not my half-brother.
Yeah?
Right. I mean, that's the only secret I know that I'm keeping from you. Was.
Okay. Why would Genevieve know that?
Because she knows a lot of really creepy things. Maybe she was just stirring the pot. Maybe she didn't even know at all.
Apparently, my grandmother said that honesty is the enemy's greatest threat. No, weakness.
I don't know how her knowing that I was born wrong was gonna be like a threat, though. Weakness.
I don't know. I don't know if it's. I don't know. I don't know if she was telling the truth. But she said she was. For some of it. So I kind of have to assume that she was telling the truth for at least that bit. Because, I mean, you don't just tell someone you want to slit their throat. Like, that's just a bit strange. Like, you would choose something else, you know?
I have done that.
Okay, so then you are
It's
also
a
a bit
very
strange.
effective intimidation technique.
Sure, but she didn't ask any questions afterward.
Yeah, I mean, she's a little loopy.
I still don't know what she actually wants, though. I mean, like, not what she wants. I know what she wants is to, like...
Murder you and destroy the continent, yeah.
Well, no, she wants to murder me, definitely. She wants lots of power, but she hasn't actually said what she wants.
No, she very specifically said she wants to destroy the world.
But she's on it. It
I
just
know,
seems very strange to destroy something if you're on it.
I agree. No, she is completely mad.
But I don't think she is.
Well, I mean, she is and she isn't on it. I mean, if she's answering to some demonic power and she's not on this plane of existence currently, she's probably there.
I wonder if it's the same one that the full 60 were on.
I don't think so. I don't think the full 60 came from hell.
Well, we don't know if she's in hell, do we?
Scholar's guess.
Are you a scholar now?
Dr. Otto von Schwitzenheim.
You are
Lovely
not
to meet you.
So it is not even you. It is Otto.
Automatically wrong.
Taking it. My point is, what do you do when you have a lot of power?
Usually control. That's what they want. They want to control people.
Well, what would you do if you had a lot of power? Control.
Yeah. I mean, I like to think I'd be doing good for people because that's what I want. But I had a conversation with Marcel yesterday and he seemed to suggest that that's what most people think they want. I'm not entirely sure I agree. Some people just want to have power for their own luxury, I think, so that they can live the most comfortable life or agreeable life to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I would want to help people make things better. But I'm sure the Confederacy believes that that's what they're doing too. They just have a strange idea about who qualifies as people.
But okay, but if you are very comfortable already, do you just want to control?
Are we talking about me again, or are we back to her?
Well, I mean, you, because you're the closest I can get to her right now.
That's a worrying thought.
Well, I mean, I don't want power, so I don't know what that feels like. But you want stuff. So...
Right. It occurs to me that the people who don't want power might be the best suited to have it. And maybe that's why the song chose you.
Seems like a bad way to go about it. But that doesn't answer my question. Also,
No. Right. The question: what if one is already comfortable? Is the only thing one wants from power control? Yeah, maybe.
control of what though? Like as much as you can control? Like, do you just want to have, I can control this thing now, and then I can control this thing when I have more
It's
power?
well, it's just about things. It's about people.
Why would you want to control people?
Well, no. Well, I think that might be what Genevieve wants. Though she seems to just want to control.
No, she
whether-
just wants to kill people.
Well,
Is that
that's a kind
controlling?
of control. I mean, it's brutal, but yes.
Seems a bit strange. You can't control people if they're all dead.
I mean, they are entirely under control if they're dead.
Yeah, I know, but then you have to like bring them back to kill them again. Is
my
that how
guess is
control? I
that
don't.
the people that Genevieve has problems with might be above our current pay grade. Or maybe not yours. If she's a conduit for a demonic power, chances are she has some gripe with the divinities, who are, despite being gods, people in some respect.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Maybe destroying us, killing our world, whatever it is she wants to do, is about controlling them.
But they're not doing anything.
Aren't they?
Well, I don't.
Maybe not on this plane of existence. But just because the divinities grant power to their worshippers doesn't mean that worshippers don't grant power to the divinities. Do you think if we all just forgot that one of them existed, they would still be as powerful as they are?
Oh, that is too much. That one. I am not capable of thinking to that extent. Yes, that one hurt.
I'm glad you had a good night.
Oh, I did not.
Okay. I'm glad that drinking was fun.
It was not.
Well, I'm glad you're still alive.
I don't know if I can agree with that right now, but you know, maybe in a few
What I
hours.
was waiting for was, instead of "it was not," it was "I am not."
I might be one day. Right now, no.
Do you want to help me brush these two down?
No. No. Why would I want to do that?
Because exercise will help clear up your headache.
See, this is why I believe you are always lying.
You need to sweat.
I definitely do not. I am sweating anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly.
I want to lie down and gently die.
Right. And just about the same time as you hear that, you
no.
start to hear the sound of water rushing towards you. And the sound of the chanson begins to echo in the back of your heads. Kazra is going to stumble out the door with a very perplexed look on her face, saying, "Is that you again?" And that's where we'll leave it.
Awkward. Awkwardy.
Spider's fingers just like gripping tight into the whatever the mane of this creature is.
And you said it was like, these are going to be our guides. And Alexander's like, really? In my head, I just had like the ox being like, yes, we guide.
We got you,
Yes,
bud.
we are the guide. We guide.
We get you then, no problem.
No. Russian.
Yeah. I don't know why they're Russian in my head, but they're Russian.
It's okay.
Yeah,
We will do
get
it.
you then. Don't
We
worry
will
about
do it.
Their names are Boris and Alexei, so I can see where like the confusion comes from.
Boris and Alexei.
Yes, the problem is not them, it's the weird little squirrel that keeps following along behind you.
Okay, Jay, can we fast forward to next week, please? Now you know what our private Discord looks like.
Yeah. Just constantly.
It's just like, can we play now? Can we
Can
play
we
now?
I would like to play now, thank you. I don't care if I have to work. Goodbye, work. Hello, play.
Unfortunately, I've just found out that my state is going into a snap lockdown tonight, so I've got to go do some shopping. So
Yeah,
Boo.
so we'll close up a little bit early because I thought that was a very good place to transition. Everyone was complaining that last episode was practically a beach episode, so I wanted to give you guys your cliffhanger that you seem to prefer.
We weren't complaining, Michelle.
Oh, well, too late now.
Beaches, all
what
beaches.
point?
Good
Oh,
game.
gosh. Thank you so much, folks. Yeah, I was the expressions on your face, Sam, when she was talking with Valdo was just like, really?
Just like cycling through conversations between Chevalier and Alexandra, and then Mysol and Alexandra, and it's just like,
Gotta be the right
Sounds
person.
better.
Gotta use the right words. It's phrasing. It's all about phrasing.
yeah.
I
Which
love
both-
that character. Waldo, he's great.
Yeah.
Valdo.
Mhm.
All right.
So, yeah.
We will-
Alrighty, folks. Thank you so much. Well, that's it. We're out for tonight. Jamie, take care of yourselves. Particularly with the lockdown and everything.
Should be
And
all right.
yeah, we'll see you in a week's time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.